Welcome to Green Dot Daily. We're live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action app. And if you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel. I'm Maria Marino, and today on the show, we'll be looking ahead to the Sweet 16 in the men's NCAA tournament and giving out picks in the NHL and NBA. But we start with some news. Raptors forward Jontay Porter is reportedly under investigation due to instances of irregular betting on props involving him. There were two games, January 26th against the Clippers and March 20th against the Kings, in which Porter exited early, and the unders for his props were significantly profitable for bettors. As we bring in Action Network senior writer Matt Moore. Okay, what are the key elements to note so far as the NBA investigates Jontay Porter?
Yeah, Maria, you hit on several of them. Several bets were attempted on Jonte Porter's unders in two games, the ones that you listed in January and in March. He left those games early. The first instance with an eye injury, he said the eye was bothering him after he was poked in the eye during a Memphis Grizzlies game for the Raptors several days earlier and did not return after the half. In the second instance, he left after the first quarter, claiming an illness. You do see him kind of grabbing his stomach as he heads to the locker room in that instance. Unusually large amounts per ESPN were attempted to be bet on these props. That's an important element to note here, is that while 10,000 and 20,000 were listed by ESPN's Adrian Wojnarowski as the attempted bets, those were not the bets taken by DraftKings. The limits on those bets for anyone that has tried betting significantly large amounts are very, very low, particularly for a role player on a two-way contract like Porter. Porter's currently suspended pending the investigation from the NBA. The key element in this, I'm told, is that there are multiple accounts that were placing these bets. So it wasn't just one large bet came in on it. There were multiple accounts attempting at the same time prior to these games, placing bets on Porter's unders, and that's what triggered the NBA's monitoring system. The DraftKings obviously immediately reached out to the league and let them know about it. In this instance, this is largely proof that in cases like this, where it would be pretty transparent, something weird was going on, the monitoring system actually worked and was successful in catching something that may or may not have been improper. Of note, Porter is the brother of Nuggets forward Michael Porter Jr. It's important to note Michael Porter Jr. is not, at this time, to the best of my knowledge, involved in any way in that investigation. Michael Porter Jr. declined to speak with reporters after last night's Nuggets win over the Grizzlies. Jontay Porter is known to have been very active in the crypto scene and giving out stock tips. He was on a Discord where he was giving out financial advice, so he has operated in circles of trading before. As of right now, there's still a lot that we don't know, and the coming days are going to be extremely important in figuring out not only what happened with Porter, but where the league goes from here.
Good to know that the monitoring system was in effect, and the regulation of sports betting is really important for instances like these. But there is a lot we still don't know. What do you think is going to come into play as the NBA faces the possibility of potential discipline over an offense that's related to betting?
Yeah, so the big key here is that there have been obviously betting scandals in other sports, major American sports, since the legalization efforts came in, but those are primarily of players betting on NFL or other sport league games, and never has it been an implication of them actually impacting their games, which that's the big implication here. The big questions, I think, are how many people were involved, right? Who was placing the bets? Was that person NBA adjacent? Is that somebody that the NBA is aware of? Who all were involved in this attempt to place these bets? What was the actual amount wagered? That's a significant one that I think is really important for people to understand. Porter's on a two-way contract, but the amount that he could have made off of this is still going to be paltry compared to that. There's simply not an opportunity to make that much of a profit off of an opportunity like this, especially with as transparent as they were in the efforts. Did Porter leave the game purposely? Obviously, the biggest question here. Was he actually injured? Was he actually sick? Did the Raptors medical team evaluate him, or did he just say, hey, I'm not feeling good, I'm going to sit out, or hey, my eye's still bothering me, I'm not going to go? What was that process like? What will be DK's recourse over the overbettors in this situation? What will the sports books that took these bets, what will they then do with the bets that were placed on the over? And of course, the other question here is, what's the punishment going to be for Porter? It's important to note here, like, everything will be on the table from the league perspective, up to and including a lifetime ban. Expulsion from the league is explicitly stated in the NBA charter as available as a recourse of action in this event. This is a very serious allegation. And if Porter is found culpable in this situation, that's likely the end of his NBA career.
Can't be taken lightly, and we will wait to see how this investigation unfolds. But for now, Matt, we appreciate your perspective. Thanks for keeping us updated.
Thank you.
We move on now to college hoops, and look at that happy face. Our director of predictive analytics, Sean Koerner, 19-7 so far on his props for the NCAA men's tournament, up 11.7 units through the first 2 rounds. Sean Koerner, welcome back to the show. I assume you're feeling pretty good so far.
Feeling pretty good right now, yeah.
Well, without further ado, we should look at the props that you like moving ahead into the Sweet 16.
Yeah, so I have 2 Sweet 16 props I want to lock in today. I think these will probably move very soon, even before I give them out. So let's get these in ASAP. The first is Micah Parrish of San Diego State, under 4.5 rebounds at -130. And this is a number that Parrish normally doesn't even clear. He's stayed under this 55% of the time over the last 20 games. But when we factor in, this is a brutal matchup against UConn, it makes it even tougher for him to clear this number, because not only is UConn, a very good rebounding team, they're also an excellent shooting team. They rank top 5 in the country in effective field goal percentage and also play at a slow pace. So there's going to be fewer rebound chances for Parrish than usual here, and it's going to be tougher for him to grab those potential rebounds as well. So that's why we're projecting him closer to 3.6 boards here, with about a 70% chance of staying under 4.5. Being able to cash this if he finishes with 4 exactly is key here, because we're projecting him around a 20% chance he gets 4 exactly. So despite it being -130, still love the under here.
Absolutely. Just a brutal matchup going up against UConn, and he's averaging 4.1 rebounds per game this season. He had 6 and 3 respectively in the first 2 rounds of the tournament. What else do you like?
Yeah, so my second prop is Michael O'Connell of NC State, over 3.5 assists at -115. O'Connell's been a key player for the Wolfpack's magical 7-game win streak here to get into the tournament and to make it to the Sweet 16. He didn't become a starter until around mid-season, and his playing time has seen pretty significant increase over this 7-game win streak. So he should play around 35, 36 minutes here against Marquette. And it's a plus matchup for him to get assists as well. Marquette plays at one of the fastest paces in the country and send their opponents to the free throw line at a very low rate. So that's going to be an increase in field goal attempts overall for NC State, which obviously boosts, your potential assist rate there. And Marquette's allowed an assist on 60% of field goal makes against them. That's one of the highest rates in the country. So just a schematic matchup for him where he's probably going to get more assists than normal. So that's why we're projecting him actually a full assist higher, 4.5 assists, with about a 65% chance of going over 3.5.
Very nice. Averaging 3.2 assists per game this season, but of late has been doing quite well, 8 and 6 respectively in the first 2 rounds of the tournament. And Sean, you want to stress the importance of betting these right now, correct?
Yeah, they might have moved already, but these are 2 that especially O'Connell, he's cleared this in both March Madness games so far, and his season long rate's pretty low because he wasn't playing that much earlier in the season. So I think the market's going to sniff this out, and I would not be shocked if this is closer to 4.5 by tip-off. So again, this is why I wanted to lock it in early on a Tuesday. So get it while you can.
Well, we so appreciate the early heads up. Sean Koerner, best of luck going forward in the tournament.
Thanks for having me.
If you've ever wanted to try the best version of the Action app, that time is now, because we're running a special offer on Action Pro. To celebrate the start of the NCAA tournament, you can try Pro Access for just $9.99 for the first month. With Action Pro, you get our biggest betting model edges, real-time money percentages, data-driven systems, NCAA tournament player prop projections from the predictive analytics team of Sean Koerner and Nick Giffen, and a whole lot more. Just visit actionnetwork.com/madness to take advantage before this deal expires. That's actionnetwork.com/madness.
I'm going to my favorite upset of the entire first round. I've been screaming about it for a week now. Yale to beat Auburn. Yale does everything well in areas that Auburn needs to win. Yale doesn't turn the ball over. They're 18th nationally. They're not going to be spooked by run and jumps. Yale prevents offensive rebounds. They're 13th nationally. They slow the game down. For an Auburn team that we all agree we don't trust their backcourt, they don't have a player at the guard position that anybody believes in here, I think this is a really, really dicey matchup. I'm going to take the team with the breakout superstar of Friday's action, Danny Wolf, and take Yale to win this one outright.
That was a great call by Greg Waddell on BBOC, as 13-seeded Yale did in fact bounce 4-seeded Auburn in the first round. Greg, as well as Charlie Disturco, joining us now. So all 4 number 1 seeds are still left, but which team is able to sort of crash the party in the Sweet 16? Greg, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm going to start by buying back into a team that I had agreed with everybody nationally who came to the conclusion that Duke is soft. What if that is okay? Like, they're about to take on the most physically imposing team in the country in Houston, who, by the way, has some injury concerns. Jawan Roberts was limping his way through 33 minutes in their overtime win over Texas A&M. Look, Houston is physical. They are aggressive. They foul a lot. Duke is perfectly okay getting fouled. They will tell you about it. They will flop around. They will flail. They will fall on the ground. And officiating has certainly played a large role in a lot of these NCAA tournament games. I think there's a chance Houston's physicality could work against them, against this quote-unquote soft Duke team. And Duke is pretty good on the offensive boards here. They're 78th nationally. I thought they beat up James Madison early in the game by asserting themselves physically. Houston, for as physical as they are, they're weak. They're vulnerable on the defensive rebounds. They're just 273rd at defensive rebounding rate. Given Houston's injury concerns, I think there's a very good chance that Duke can show up to this game and steal this one and knock off the first 1 seed in this tournament. If there is another one to keep your eye on, I'll just throw a second one out quickly. I would keep my eye on Gonzaga against Purdue. Last month, Gonzaga has been the 3rd best team in the country. Purdue has been 7th. This is a different Zags team since the first time they played in Maui. Dusty Stromer started that first game. Whole lot of different options now at Mark Few's disposal, and that Gonzaga offense is rolling right now. Zach Edey in drop coverage is going to be in a tough spot.
Charlie, thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think Gonzaga is more than live to pull off the upset here against Purdue. And I think Greg kind of nailed it on the head. You look at their efficiency numbers over the last month, even since February 1st, this is a top 10 team that they're number 2 in efficiency on the offensive end. And I think that's key here, is that ever since they put Ben Gregg into the starting lineup, that this team has looked like a different being. And it's, the Gregg Energizer bunny effect. Like, this guy just offensive rebound, put back and one, all of a sudden he is shifting momentum. It happened against Kansas, and then against Kansas at the end of the first half, and then Gonzaga came out of the second half and absolutely blew the doors off of KU. They've been battle tested. They played KU. They played a really good McNeese State team and blew the doors off them. Purdue beat a Mountain West team. I'll repeat that again. A Mountain West team. They are horrendous. They did not do anything in the NCAA tournament. They're way smaller, way softer, and now they have to play a stronger Gonzaga team. Now it depends if Graham Ike gets into foul trouble or not, but if he stays healthy, I think that this team, and out of foul trouble and remains on the floor for 30, 35 minutes, I think that this Gonzaga team, we could blink and they'd be up 10 to 15 with their hot offense continuing.
Okay, so Purdue could be vulnerable. Anyone else you want to mention, Charlie?
I do think that North Carolina is a bit vulnerable as well. I think that I don't think they're going to lose per se, but I think that they are vulnerable in the sense of the profile that is Alabama, right? Like, I think me and Greg both think UConn is going to cakewalk their way to the Final Four, if not the championship. And North Carolina, Houston, everyone else has something that could happen where the number 1 seeds go down. And for North Carolina, it's Alabama, and they're 50% of all attempts coming from the perimeter. They just fire, hope that, they hit 20 to 30 of them. And if they do, all of a sudden they're winning. So I don't think it's going to happen per se, but they were able to put up 100+ points against Charleston and win ugly against Grand Canyon.
Well, I appreciate you alerting us to that possibility. But as we get into best bets here, Charlie, you're feeling good about North Carolina.
Yeah, it was. I saw -3 get dropped, and then I immediately took it, and now it's sitting at 3.5, 4. I'm still on the Tar Heels here. This Alabama defense is horrible, plain and simple. Like, they're just ugly. Like, you look at how well they performed defensively, or how well their opponents shot 12 of 53 from 3 in the first 2 games of the NCAA tournament. They played Charleston, who has a weaker interior than just about any team in the field. Then they played Grand Canyon, which that game was an utter shit show. I mean, there was turnovers everywhere. Grand Canyon couldn't hit the broadside of a barn. But you look at the last month, they're outside the top 50 in efficiency. Their defense is on 150th. And North Carolina, Harrison Ingram, Armando Bacot, 2 elite offensive rebounders. UNC was number 1 in ACC play, grabbing a third of second chance opportunities. I think the same is going to happen here. I think Bacot's going to absolutely pick apart this Bama front court. Every single big man that's played, Bama has had great games. Janai Broome, Makai Mitchell. So I trust RJ Davis and this veteran-led UNC team to kind of get the job done here. I think it's a public side, but they don't call me Chucky Public for nothing. So I'm taking the 3.5 here.
Very nice. Well, Greg, why don't we get into your best bets?
Well, yeah, Chucky Public and the Energizer Bunny, Greg here. That's what we are. We're a tag team. Earlier this season, mind you, the first time I ever met Charlie, we were on a Zoom call for this very show, and Charlie was singing Rocky Top as we watched the Tennessee Volunteers cruise to a 40-point victory and the easiest cash of the entire college basketball season. I want to convince Charlie to go back with me because I see this Tennessee team 2.5-point favorites against Creighton, a Creighton team, mind you, who relies on making shots, and they've been making them at an incredible rate this tournament. They're shooting 45% from 3 through 2 games. They were above the 50% mark in the first round. They survived in double overtime against an Oregon team whose best guard, Cousinard, scored 32 points on 33 shots. Creighton needed to shoot the lights out to survive an Oregon team that is not very good, whose point guard did not even have a great shooting night. I think there's very ominous writing on the wall here that Creighton, one, is due for a cold game from behind the arc against a great defense that Tennessee has to offer. Talk about all the concerns people have with Houston against Duke physically. Tennessee has even more of a mismatch physically against guys like Stephen Ashworth, who I have no idea how he can even play in this game. And most importantly, Tennessee survived the one thing everybody said would be their downfall in March. Dalton Knecht, if he has a bad game, can they win? They did win, and they're lucky that they won. That was the Rick Barnes stinker that we've all come to know and love. They have new life. They dodged the bullet, and I will be shocked if Tennessee doesn't win this game by 10. I'm hoping Charlie will come with me.
Oh, let's ride, baby. Rocky Top, you'll always be. I just think that this Tennessee team, like you said it, they had their chance to lose. And this was what I was worried about, was what happens when Knecht can't score. And they beat Texas. And, maybe they're a little bit lucky that it was Texas and not a team like Creighton who would take advantage of that. But I think that this is the game that regression hits. And like you mentioned, they were 3 of 25 from 3 against Texas. Creighton has shot 50+% against Akron, near 40% against Oregon. I mean, it was a literal 2-man game for the Ducks, and they still somehow made it to double overtime against Creighton. The caulk drop, it just everything schematically, I think, favors Tennessee. Like I also like Knecht's over 19.5 points. Like I don't see how he doesn't score 30 to 40 here, because they're just going to funnel him inside the paint. He's going to take the elbow jumpers. He's one of the best shooters in the entire country. Listen, I know it's scary, right? Like Rick Barnes is 4-16 against the spread in the NCAA tournament, I believe. But listen, I'm afraid of heights, and I lived on the 14th floor of my apartment building before. I've looked over the edges atop of rooftops. Like, you know what? Like, if I'm scared, like, I'm just going to go in full head first. I take the 2.5 here. I think they're going to roll. I think this is the perfect spot where Creighton's magic kind of comes to an end here. Tennessee gets right, makes a statement win, and the Vols roll.
Well, it only feels right that we keep the tradition going of the both of you backing Tennessee on the show. And Charlie, maybe you can be less scared since you have Greg riding along with you. But Greg, what's one more pick you like heading into this round?
Listen, this is why I love Charlie Disturco. I come on the show and I get convinced to do things I didn't even anticipate doing. He's right. Sometimes you have to do things that scare you. Is there anything scarier in the month of March in the NCAA tournament than fading Caleb Love? Anytime this man's in the NCAA tournament, you're at his disposal. Whatever Caleb Love wants to happen in this game is going to happen. With that said, I'm fading him. I'm not afraid. I have to look him in the eyes and do what Charlie said to do. I think this is a dream matchup for Clemson. I really do. They're going to slow the tempo down. They play the 256th fastest pace in the country. That's not fast. It's actually very slow. They've got two bigs that they can use to space out, draw Oumar Ballo away from the rim. His rim protection is a key part of the Arizona defense. PJ Hall will shoot 4 or 5 threes in this game. Shefflin can step out and hit them as well. But most importantly for me, the Clemson guards have elevated their level of play in this tournament. We were waiting for it all throughout the conference play stretch of the schedule from January into February. Chase Hunter has been a monster. He's been over 20 points in both of their games. He's just playing with a newfound confidence that we all knew was there all season long, that sometimes doesn't pop up until late in your careers for guys that you know are talented but are now playing with a sense of desperation. To me, I trust the Clemson guards more than I trust Caleb Love in this game. They've been able to frustrate fast-paced teams in this tournament already. Remember what they did to New Mexico, jumping out to a huge lead by dragging that game into the mud. I think that's exactly the game script here. Catching a touchdown and a half a point, way too many points for me. I will take the Tigers.
You know, it's interesting too. PJ Hall barely played in their first 2 games. Like, he dealt with foul trouble both games and they still were able to win. And I like your point about the spacing. I don't know how Oumar Ballo plays more than 25 minutes. Like, I might be looking toward his rebounds prop at this point, because he was played out of the game against Dayton with Daron Holmes, and now PJ Hall, Shefflin, they're both able to pull him out, and they're quicker than him, and PJ Hall is going to be a matchup nightmare. I'm scared of this one too. I might join you though, Greg. I'm scared. This one is the scariest one that we presented.
Hey,
let's do it, Charlie.
We're all in this together. Guys, good looking out. It's going to be a super fun Sweet 16 and super fun to have you guys on the show. Greg Waddell and Charlie Disturco, thanks again.
Thank you.
And just a reminder to North Carolina residents, sports betting is now live, and there are some awesome registration offers out there. Make sure to check out the link in the description or go to actionnetwork.com for specific offer codes. Let's welcome Jay Money back to the show to talk more about the NBA, specifically a tight Western Conference, and the Suns doing themselves no favors, losing to the Spurs without Victor Wembanyama, and Frank Vogel called this loss unacceptable. What did you make of it?
Yeah, it was a bad loss there for the Suns. It's almost like a 2-game blow to your record, Maria. Obviously not getting a win and adding a loss to your record. That could be huge right now, especially with the 4th seed and the 8th seed being separated by 2 games here. So it was a huge game there. Obviously, when Wemby, ever since they saw Wemby's not playing, it's almost like they're kind of like, even before the game starts, all right, let's just take our foot off the gas. It's not that big of a deal. They probably got caught looking ahead to the Nuggets as well, which is obviously a huge game, but they could have been sitting at the 6th seed this morning instead of the 8th seed. So I think that's more, that's the biggest thing. That's the reason why he called the loss unacceptable. It was a very important game. Every game is important right now in the Western Conference. So that was a huge blow for the Suns to lose that game as double-digit favorites without Victor Wembanyama.
Yes, and it's compounded by the fact that the Suns have the toughest remaining schedule in the NBA. You mentioned just how tight the West is. Seeds 4 through 7, all within 2 games of each other. And that includes the Mavericks and Kings, who play tonight in Sacramento. You have a bet in this game.
Yes, I do have a bet. So I like the Mavs in this game, man. This is a big spot here for the Mavs. Very important game as well, as you say. I mean, these two teams, they're sitting at a half game back behind from the Kings as well. Kings already beat them twice already this season. So you want to win these next 2 games versus Sacramento, so at least you could tie that. And if the Mavs have a better record overall, then they can leap past the Kings in this one. But the Mavs are 8-3 against the spread on back-to-backs. That's good for second best in the NBA. They did lose both home games versus the Kings off of a road home back-to-back, but that was a totally different version of the Mavs there. That's before they traded for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford. So this is a different version that the Kings will be seeing, different version of the Mavs that they'll be seeing. The much better version the Mavs are as well. This is a back-to-back, third game in 4 nights, fourth game in 6 nights, fifth game in 7 nights for the Kings. Absolutely brutal spot here, man. If you look at all the travel they've been doing, they just came from an East Coast road trip. This is only the second game back as well. They traveled over 6,000 miles in the span of 5 or 6 days. I really think that the Kings probably run out of gas in this one. I know that they can play well at the house, and they've been a lot better defensive team, but I don't see them having enough to compete with the Mavs in this one. Mavs are off the back-to-back as well, but they did have 3 days of rest before their game last night in Utah. So I'm rocking with the Mavs in this one. Money line, plus the one, whatever you want to take. Let's go Mavs.
Such a tough schedule spot, especially for the Kings. And if the Mavs take care of business, as you are hoping they will, they could end up avoiding a play-in spot, which would be key for them. Jay Money, thank you.
Anytime, Maria. Let's cash.
Hey everybody, it's Joe Delara, and I've got a couple of my favorite plays for this Tuesday NBA slate. The first play that I'm looking at is Austin Reeves over 17.5 points. In this game, the Lakers take on the Milwaukee Bucks, and it appears that they will be without LeBron James, who's listed as doubtful for this matchup. One player to target is Austin Reeves. Reeves can score at every level, and he sees his usage spike without LeBron. He averages 19.1 points per game and has exceeded his 17.5 line in 6 of 9 games without LeBron this season. When these two teams played a few weeks ago, which was also without LeBron, Reeves scored 18 points, and that was with D'Lo dropping an absurd 44 points with 9 threes. That's a bit of an outlier performance for D'Angelo Russell, and more usage should be available in this contest. This is an advantageous matchup for Reeves in a pace-up spot for both teams. I like him to exceed 17.5 points. For my second play, I'm looking at Domantas Sabonis over 8.5 assists against the Dallas Mavericks. Sabonis made the news and the record books last night with his 54th consecutive double-double, but it's time to look at his assists today. The Kings are playing in the second game of a back-to-back, and he has absolutely thrived in this spot. On 0 days rest this season, Sabonis is averaging 7.9 assists per game. But this number actually spikes when they play at home. This game against Dallas is a pace-up spot as well. Dallas plays at the 8th fastest pace, while the Kings play at the 12th fastest. So there should be plenty of possessions, plenty of opportunities for Sabonis to rack up some assists. Additionally, from a matchup perspective, it's really solid for him as well. He's historically torched Daniel Gafford, and he has a pretty significant size advantage over Derek Lively on the interior, where he should be able to get to the spots that he wants to and be able to facilitate out of the post as well. I'll play the 8.5 assists, and I'll also grab some triple-double as well. So to recap, my two favorite plays for this Tuesday NBA slate are Austin Reeves over 17.5 points and Domantas Sabonis over 8.5 assists with a sprinkle on the triple-double. Best of luck on your wagers today and enjoy the rest of your Tuesdays.
To the NHL, here's a look at the playoff race in the Eastern Conference. Florida, Boston, and Toronto are at the top of the Atlantic Division. The New York Rangers, Carolina, and Philly in the Metro. Tampa Bay is comfortably in the first wildcard spot. The second spot is very much up for grabs, though, currently occupied by Washington. Detroit is just 1 point back with playoffs less than a month away. As we bring in our hockey expert, Nick Martin. So the Red Wings and Caps face off tonight at 7 Eastern. How does the significance of this game in terms of playoff seeding influence how you'll be betting it?
Yeah, there's a ton of playoff significance in this game, roughly a 30% swing for the playoff hopes of both teams involved. And when we see playoff hockey, totals tend to tick down. When we get into the playoffs, you're not going to see a lot of 6.5s. And I do think that that is actually something you can bet into, because what happens is when teams are more prepared, they are less likely to get a little like super aggressive. Hockey tends to be more conservative at that point. That's kind of just the way it's always been. And when teams play better defensively, that just like when they're kind of focusing on that, it tends to lead to lower totals. Hockey's not like basketball where offensive stars can make plays that just, you know, you push the pace and you find a way to do it on your own. That's less likely. When it's structured and everyone's in the right spot, that tends to just lead to lower scoring games. So I think that the under here is a good play. And I keep checking back at this number, and I'm surprised it's actually ticked down on FanDuel to make sure the Caps weren't going to start Darcy Kemper, because that's the only thing I can see here in this kind of a matchup. The Caps are still a very one-dimensional offense. They don't have a lot kind of dynamic pieces to expose what has been a shaky Detroit defense. And there's really one way they're going to look to win big games, and that's just trying to make it a low event, like one or two goal game, and lean on Charlie Lindgren. So for me, I'm not quite seeing 6.5. I'd still play 6, but I like having 6.5 when I think 4-2 is going to be a pretty common score line with one team getting the empty netter there. So I like that. I think that's a good spot, or this is a good spot to target that. The Caps have had a few more higher scoring games recently, but I still think those are going to be the outlier. I think this is a pretty stale offense, and Detroit's shown a little more defensive capability of late as well. They got Dylan Larkin back, who's their best defensive forward. And I like that they've slid Edvinsson in on the back end. So, yeah, I think this is a good spot in a playoff matchup, more or less, to just target the under.
Fair enough. Well, the Capitals have won 5 of their last 6 games, and thus their performance this season has put head coach Spencer Carberry into the coach of the year conversation. He has the second best odds at plus 1,000. Who is a pick that you like for this award?
Yeah, and I'll throw out there, Carberry deserves it. I can completely see how he's 10-1. But the one that really jumps out to me is Andrew Brunette is priced at he's at 50-1. He's the Predators coach. They're 17-0 or 15-0-2 in their last 17 games. This team is just on a ridiculous run. And I can see why Rick Tocchet is a worthy favorite. He's got kind of all the Jack Adams narratives working in his favor. He's coaching a team that's greatly overperforming expectations and is even in the mix for the President's Trophy. But I think if the Canucks don't win the President's Trophy, or maybe even were to blow up the division, that's going to hurt Tocchet's case a lot. And if I look at these two teams right now, the Predators, if they come in 7 or 8 points below the Canucks, to me, that's just a clear case that you should be voting for Andrew Brunette. And obviously, it's tough to say what NHL media will actually do. But I think at 50-1, we have the right number. Even at this moment, obviously, I don't have a vote. And, you can't count on the NHL media to pay the most attention at times. I would vote for Brunette. I'd be torn on voting for Carberry. I think Tocchet kind of inherited a better situation. He's got more elite talent. He has done a really good job getting the most out of his roster. But if you look at the preseason projections, I think Leboff on our pod gave out the Preds to finish dead last at 100-1. That's what people were thinking about this team. And their point total is right around 83.5. The Preds or the Canucks were still close to 50-50 to make the playoffs. That's where most odds makers had them. So I'm not quite seeing the 50-1 for Brunette. Maybe it hurts a little that he's already won this. And I think some of the older hockey media might be looking at it as wow, this guy's really going to have 2 in his first 3 years of coaching. Some of these guys have been grinding for 20 years to get to where he's at. But I don't think that should be something they let weigh too much if the Preds just finish with 94 points and kind of close to some of these other teams. So I'd be making the same case for Carberry with the Caps if he was 50-1, but he's not. I think that this is a bit of a misprice. I was actually excited that I found a site in Alberta to lock in 35-1 last week. So when I looked and FanDuel has 50-1 or up today, I think that's definitely worth a little wager.
Yeah, it's a nice heads up for the Predators, especially if they continue to exceed expectations. And they are currently in the first wild card spot in the West, just a few points ahead of the Golden Knights. All right, Nick Martin, thank you.
Thanks, Mia.
Remember, any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard from Nick, you can easily reference by following Green Dot Daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. That's all for this edition of Green Dot Daily. I'm Maria Marino. Brendan Glasheen will have you covered on GDD tomorrow, but I'll see you for the NCAA Tournament Check-In show. That's at 5 Eastern on Wednesday on the Action app and YouTube channel.